Hello, this is Dr. Harriet Fraud, bringing you Capitalism Hits Home, a podcast about the mutual shaping and interpenetration of the economy, social forces, and personal life in the United States. Today, I want to talk about a worldwide trend which is certainly affecting the United States as well as the rest of the world, and that is childlessness. By the year 2100, 97% of all nations won't have enough population to reproduce the population they have now. The only people who will have more than that population are the countries without birth control, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa. Wow. The U.S. is certainly no exception. Our fertility rate, our rate of having children, is going down every year. Well, the question is, why aren't Americans having enough children to maintain our population? Why? Well, part of it is thanks to capitalist greed in the United States. It now takes two incomes to sustain anything like, less prosperity than it took one male family wage income that white males got in the 1950s. What happened? Well, the population rate started to decrease in the mid-70s, just as well-paid male jobs, mainly white male jobs in our racist society, just as those jobs were being outsourced to nations with a lot less ecological awareness or legislation, less protection from ecological disasters, less protection in terms of pensions and injuries on the job, less costs for capitalism. At the same time, jet travel was getting much faster and more efficient. Computers, faxes, robots, and other machinery was allowing an owner in the United States to communicate with his factory in China and get the information she, he, or they needed to continue to operate, to accumulate vast profit, and then come back to the United States and buy our government. Very handy for them. Well, what am I talking about? Well, in the U.S., the average wage is somewhere between $34.75 and $28.75 an hour. Whereas in China, the average wage is $3.07 an hour. In India, it's 40 cents an hour. So it paid capitalists to outsource their operations to nations with many fewer, if any, protections and much lower wages. Other nations that have strong communist and socialist elements fought against outsourcing, which isn't allowed. Outsourcing isn't allowed in Germany. It's not allowed in any of the Scandinavian countries. In Sweden, if you want to close your factory in Sweden, you have to get an equivalent paying job for every single person who's working in your factory. So it's easier for you to manufacture something else than it is to stop production. And therefore, people don't suffer as they do here. One of the biggest predictors of poverty in the United States is motherhood, which is sad. No wonder women aren't having children the way they used to. Single Black women and their children are the poorest people in America. Well, why? In spite of the Moynihan Report in 1965 that said that the reason that Black families were not holding up is that Black men were lustful and lazy. Well, obviously, the reason that that Black families were not prospering and staying together is that Black men never got a family wage. Manhood then was equated with having the ability to support a family, and they couldn't do it on the wages they could get. Interestingly enough, in 2010, Charles Murray wrote a book called Coming Apart, which blamed the failure of blue-collar marriages and families to stay together on the lustful laziness of blue-collar workers, rather than the fact that their jobs were exported and they couldn't make a family wage and their wives had to go to work and didn't want the double shift when they got home. There's a huge wage gap from which women are suffering. Although women as a whole get 82% of the male wage, mothers get 74 cents on the male dollar. And Black mothers get even less, 62% of the white male wage. Another reason is that the way jobs are segregated, women's jobs that are more typical for women are the lowest paid jobs. And racial inequalities compound the sexual inequalities, so that Black mothers who work full-time get paid only 49 cents of the white male dollar, even if the males are fathers. And that goes on even up the educational chain, so that even though people say that education is a way to economic prosperity, nearly half of employed mothers, that's 45.8%, have at least a bachelor's degree. However, they get less than a male with an associate's degree, those mothers, even if the man is a father. Mothers working full-time with a master's degree make the same amount as a male with an associate's degree. And that goes on all the way up to PhDs. Nearly a quarter of all part-time workers are women who get paid even less. And so that women are refusing childbirth because it means poverty for women. Not women with PhDs, perhaps, but it means a less high standard of living. Plus, women who care for children are additionally financially punished. The way jobs are handed out in a lot of blue-collar work is that workers go to a bar and construction people go to a bar. Hey, I need somebody to refinish the furniture on this place. Or, hey, I need a drywall specialist. Women have to go home to take care of their children. If there's a conference in another city, it's unlikely women will be able to go because they have the care of their children. Now, you can say, well, they do have childcare. Well, childcare in America costs more than the average rent per month and more than the average mortgage payment per month. And so that the expense, if you want to be able to work more, You have to be paid a whole lot more to cover the costs of childcare. The only professions in which women are not paid appreciably less are the lowest paid professions, like daycare workers, who are all paid terribly, men and women. That is why women are foregoing motherhood. The biggest development among married people is married people without children, because it's too expensive. There was a study done on what would it take for a 4-person family, 2 children and 2 parents, to live in the top 10 cities in the United States. It takes between $275,000 a year and $300,000 a year. And that's for 2 people working and also paying for childcare and an apartment and some leisure and the daily expenses of life. American women are increasingly single by choice because now really the majority of American women are single. For the first time in American history, women have decided that they don't want husbands, and increasingly they don't want children either. Well, why do they have children anyway? Why is it women who've been responsible for children? Children replace the workers of the society. Why isn't the society responsible? Some societies take more responsibility. The only developed country which is reproducing itself, or almost reproducing itself, is France, that has the best daycare system in Europe. When a child is born, for $1 an hour, you can put your child in a childcare center from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and bring your child home with a clean outfit and 3 meals provided. They have subsidized, heavily subsidized, can never be more than 15% of your income for summer care for children and for after-school care. And so French parents can afford to have children. They also have extra subsidies for single mothers, clothing allowances for school, allowances for summer programs, etc. So that women are refusing to have children because it's just too expensive in the United States. And in the United States, since women are paid so much less than men, if somebody has to stay home and there are 2 parents present, the woman would be elected just financially, because the loss to the family of her income is less than the loss to the family of the father's income. Well, why did so many people have children anyway? And why do even the decreasing number of women who have children? Well, women are groomed by the messages we get from society. One message is that being happily married and having children is the ultimate fulfillment for women. That's decreasing somewhat now as the majority of women are single. But it's still there. Children books show the happy family, mommy, daddy, children. TV programs, although sometimes they're sarcastic, also show that. Children's books usually show the fathers as providers. I remember when I was a supervisor of Head Start, these little girls were playing house, and a boy wanted to join them, and they said he couldn't. And I went over and said, surely there's a place for a father in your play. And then when I was leaving, they said, you're the father. You get out and go to work. Okay, that's because families are shown as women with women in children's books as the carers of children. Children's books do the same thing. There's a beautiful children's book which is sadly unique. It's called William's Doll, and it's about a boy who really wanted a doll to cuddle and nurture and grow up. And the people around him said, surely you'd rather have a truck or something like that. But what he wanted most was a doll so that he would have someone to love and hold. The most popular toys for boys are aggressive toys, toys relating to wrestling or guns or shooting or those little dolls they have for boys that they call action figures so they won't be called dolls, are usually fighters, whereas the most popular girls' toys are related either to vanity or childcare. They're either little ballerina dresses or makeup or jewelry or nail polish or Barbie dolls or sex objects to adorn and whose clothes you can change and whose outfits you can change. Or baby dolls for women to take care of babies. Boys aren't shown in children's books nurturing babies or playing with younger children. Having children was sold. I'm old, so in my childhood it was sold as the ultimate fulfillment of women. Being an old maid, just certainly pejorative, unlike being a bachelor, being an old maid and not having children was considered aberrant behavior. Women who elected not to have children were labeled selfish cunts. And that is changing only because women are now questioning whether they want to have the huge responsibilities of taking care of an utterly vulnerable life, of organizing that life, of emotionally connecting to the needs of that life, of taking care of the physical needs of that little life. I remember when my daughter was a baby, she would vomit every night over all of her bedclothes. So I'd have to pick her up, clean her off, and change the sheets. And I said to my pediatrician, and then wash those sheets and clothes, of course, why is she doing that? He said, oh, it's nothing. I said, it's nothing for you. You don't do the laundry. He said, oh, well, the epiglottal fold that keeps food down is not developed adequately in some children. It comes with time, and it opens up, and all the contents that they have eaten spill out. That wasn't important, the work that caused. And a lot of women have rejected the idea that the best use for their time is taking care of other people who don't take care of them. Now, little children do try to take care of their parents, and there are satisfactions in loving someone and watching that person grow, watching children's development. But not every woman wants to be responsible for children's lives. In 1975, Ann Landers, who had the most popular column for people, a personal advice column, had a survey on parenthood, to which thousands of people responded. And the question she asked is, if you could do it all over again, would you still have your children? 70% of the respondents said no. Now, that was not a scientific study. Maybe the parents who felt strongly resentful of all the work that they had about their children were the ones to answer, and the ones who were content with motherhood didn't, or didn't feel as strongly that it was important to answer. But that was still significant. The 24-hour care of a needy little being who can't talk to you, who can hardly relate to you. And I should say, parenthetically, that ads for baby needs only photograph children 6 months or older, because new babies don't even recognize you while they demand enormous amounts of care. And about 70% of marriages break up. There's a 50% chance of a divorce that's a legal separation or divorce for first marriages. And then it goes up to 65% for second marriages, 70% for third marriages. And people who don't have kids to fight over, or no one wants to fight because neither of them wants them, or one doesn't. So they don't have kids to fight over, they don't have property to fight over and money to fight over. They just split. And so if you count that 15 or 20%, you're up to 60, 70% of marriages. And so that women are now, for the first time in the United States, now that most of us are single, are actually daring to go against social convention and talk about life without children. There's a very good book by Ruby Warrington called Women Without Kids, which talks about why she didn't have children, although she was certainly condemned for it, and how happy it's made her. There's also another book out now, Ruby Warrington's book, Women Without Kids, came out just this year. And a few years ago is a book by Orna Donath called Regretting Motherhood, which really presents the very subversive evidence that belies the social pressures on women to have children. There's also commentary on Reddit, which is very interesting, under the title of Women Who Regret Having Children Are Speaking Up. Therefore, it's important to understand that child rearing is enormously time-consuming and puts women back, prevents us from surviving economically, and is an indicator of poverty. It's less so in countries like France, where they have superb daycare, or Scandinavia, where single mothers get housing preference and good supplements. And that's why women are not having children worldwide. In Japan, it's so dramatic, their reduction in population, that the government is giving $35 a head to bars who have mixers of men and women. They pay for $35 worth of drinks to those bars who have mixers, inviting men and women together, hoping that they'll meet and have children. At any rate, this is part of our devaluation. I should say that France is one of the only countries that are a developed country that is not suffering from a want of population, because during the French Revolution, a huge demand was the demand for the state to subsidize and create childcare. And so there was a necessity and a demand for public childcare, and a recognition that children replace the workers of today. And so the state should help and take responsibility for bringing them up. The other people who are having children and reproducing or exceeding their population are very poor countries, mainly in Africa, who don't have accessible birth control. So that's why women are refusing motherhood. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.